In the claustrophobic theater of American politics, battles aren't just fought in marble corridors or behind oak podiums. Sometimes they erupt at 30,000 feet, where the oxygen is thin and principles are even thinner. Today's political skirmish. Seat 2A on Patriot Air Flight 1776, where the collision course between power, privilege, and political bias was about to create turbulence that no pilot could navigate through. Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary at just 27 years old, settled into her platinum member first-class seat, opening her tablet to review notes for an upcoming media conference in New York. A rising star in political communications, Leavitt had mastered the art of message control. Little did she know she was about to become the message herself. Across the aisle, flight attendant Emily Carter approached with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Behind her stood Michelle Obama, former First Lady, draped in a navy blue coat that cost more than most Americans' monthly rent. "There seems to be a misunderstanding, ma'am," Carter said, her tone dripping with artificial sweetness. "We need you to move to prioritize a VIP passenger. This seat is typically reserved for special customers." The subtext wasn't subtle. One political figure was deemed more worthy than another. The unspoken hierarchy of American politics was asserting itself in the most mundane of settings. If you're analyzing the chess moves of American political theater, subscribe now to never miss our deep dives into the power plays that define our national narrative. Leavitt's response wasn't the emotional outburst many would have expected. With the composure that makes effective press secretaries worth their weight in gold, she retrieved her platinum membership card and presented it. "I'm a platinum member," she stated, her voice steady and professional. "And this is the seat confirmed for me when I booked." The whispers began. "Trump person," someone muttered, as if political affiliation were a contagious disease requiring quarantine. Phones appeared, recording the confrontation, each frame captured through the lens of America's political divide. In the theater of American politics, even a seat assignment becomes ideological warfare. Cabin Supervisor David Lawson approached next, the embodiment of authority without accountability. "Ma'am, we need you to move to prioritize a VIP passenger," he announced, loud enough for the political gallery to hear. The message was clear. Some VIPs are more V than others. When influence and ideology clash in everyday America, who truly holds the power? Before we continue this political dissection, take a moment to consider, is this the America we want to live in, where your political affiliation determines your right to a seat you paid for? Hit like if you believe fairness should transcend political divisions. "Perhaps you're not familiar with how our airline operates," Lawson continued, delivering a lecture in condescension. "We prioritize passengers with exceptional influence." The passenger gallery, smelling blood in the politically charged air, contributed their own commentary. "She's a Trump person, doesn't deserve that seat," one passenger whispered, loud enough to be heard throughout first class. "Michelle Obama is a national icon," added another, as if celebrity status trumped contractual agreements. Democracy's theater was in full performance, with the audience voting on rights based not on principles, but on political jerseys. "We can resolve this easily, or it'll have to get difficult," Lawson threatened, his voice low but carrying the weight of corporate power backed by ideological bias. Leavitt's response was the verbal equivalent of steel. "I'm not moving. This is my confirmed seat." 6 words, delivered like a closing argument, before a political jury. The stakes escalated when Captain Michael Bennett emerged from the cockpit, the final authority in this airborne political drama. "Ma'am, I've been informed there's an issue," he declared, the weight of his uniform adding gravitas to the confrontation. "My crew has the authority to reassign seats." The political theater had its full cast now, the young Republican communicator, the Democrat icon, the corporate enforcers, and the audience of partisan spectators. America in microcosm at 30,000 feet. "Captain, with all due respect," Leavitt replied, her voice clear and confident. "I have a confirmed ticket, and I'm a platinum member. I chose this seat for its workspace. There's no rule requiring me to give up my booked seat just because someone else wants it." The confrontation reached its climax when security was called to remove Leavitt from the aircraft, not for any violation of airline policy, but for the unspoken crime of refusing to yield her legitimate place to political royalty. As Leavitt was escorted from the plane, she displayed the strategic thinking that makes effective political operatives formidable. She recorded everything, documented every interaction, and made a single phone call that would transform this personal humiliation into a national reckoning. "Sarah, it's Karoline," she said to her trusted aide. Get the media and legal teams together immediately. I was just ejected from a flight in a clear case of political bias. The political machinery that she had helped build was about to be turned against Patriot Air with surgical precision. A fellow passenger, who had witnessed the entire incident, approached Leavitt in the terminal. Miss Leavitt, I left the plane because I couldn't sit idly by after what happened. I recorded everything from the moment the flight attendant asked you to give up your seat to when you were forced to leave. The raw footage, untainted by network bias or political spin, would soon detonate across America's media landscape. What's your take on this collision of politics and corporate power? Comment below with your thoughts on whether corporations should enforce political hierarchies. Meanwhile, aboard the flight, Michelle Obama took seat 2A, maintaining a composed demeanor. She hadn't requested the seat, but the crew had prioritized her, pressured by passengers and perhaps their own political leanings. Emily Carter brought a complimentary glass of champagne, bowing deferentially. We're so sorry for the disruption, Miss Obama, Emily said, her voice reverent. We want to ensure your flight is perfect. In the galley, out of passenger sight, Emily and David Lawson exchanged knowing glances. Thanks to her, we'll get praised online, David whispered, referring to a passenger's promise of positive media coverage. Their political calculation was about to backfire spectacularly. As the plane reached cruising altitude, the video of Leavitt's removal was already approaching terminal velocity online. At Patriot Air's gleaming headquarters, CEO Robert Harrison was reviewing quarterly financials when his phone rang. It was Laura Evans, the public relations director, her voice tense with panic. Sir, we're facing a serious situation. A video is going viral showing Karoline Leavitt being removed from this morning's flight. Harrison initially dismissed the concern until he learned who Karoline Leavitt was, the White House press secretary with direct influence over the government transportation contracts Patriot Air was desperately negotiating. As Harrison watched the video, his expression shifted from concern to horror. The footage clearly showed Leavitt being treated unfairly, the crew agreeing to bias, and Leavitt's dignified composure throughout. Have we identified the passenger? Harrison demanded. Yes, sir. It's Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. The silence that followed was the sound of corporate realization. They had just committed political suicide. The video reached 2 million views within hours. Major news networks picked up the story, with conservative outlets framing it as liberal elitism and progressive channels scrambling to contextualize what appeared to be indefensible bias. Patriot Air's stock plummeted 12% before lunch, with analysts predicting a 30% drop by closing bell if decisive action wasn't taken. The political machine that Leavitt commanded was executing a masterclass in crisis exploitation, turning a personal slight into a referendum on political bias in corporate America. An emergency meeting was convened at Patriot Air headquarters. Board members rushed in, some still in golf attire, others clearly having left family events. The atmosphere in the boardroom was suffocating, all eyes fixed on the doorway, awaiting the woman who now held Patriot's fate in her hands. When Karoline Leavitt entered, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversations ceased. Despite the morning's humiliation, she exuded calm confidence. She wasn't playing the victim, she was wielding power. The video played on the boardroom screen, every damning second captured in high definition. The condescension, the bias, the passenger's promise of media support in exchange for political favoritism. When it ended, the room was steeped in silence. CEO Robert Harrison cleared his throat. Miss Leavitt, we wish to express our sincerest apologies for the unacceptable treatment you experienced today. This behavior does not reflect Patriot's values. I'm not interested in apologies, Leavitt interrupted, her tone cold and resolute. I have 2 demands and 1 decision. First, the entire crew involved must be suspended immediately. Second, I will recommend to the administration that we review Patriot Air's government official transportation contract. Harrison attempted negotiation, but Leavitt cut him off with precision. This is not a negotiation, she stated. Either take accountability, or I will ensure the Department of Transportation launches a full investigation into Patriot Air's operations. The multi-million-dollar government contract you're pursuing will be at serious risk. As if on cue, a financial analyst burst in with more bad news. Patriot Air's stock had dropped 12% and was still falling. Analysts predicted a 30% plunge by day's end without decisive action. While the boardroom drama unfolded, Emily Carter, David Lawson, and Michael Bennett sat in tense silence in a modest meeting room. HR Director Ellen Brooks entered with security officers, a clear indication this wasn't a standard performance review. "I'll be direct," Ellen began. "Your employment contracts with Patriot Air are terminated, effective immediately." The statement hit like a thunderclap. Emily stifled a sob. David's anger flared. Michael simply closed his eyes, his weathered face aging decades in seconds. "We're sorry," David protested. "We were just following passenger pressure." Ms. Leavitt was stubborn. Ellen's response was glacial. She played the viral video, highlighting their actions and the passengers' audible promise of media support for political bias. "Is agreeing to a passenger's promise of favoritism in exchange for bias part of procedure?" Ellen asked, her voice cutting through their excuses. Emily broke down. "We made a terrible mistake," she admitted. "I knew it was wrong as it was happening, but I didn't stop it." They were escorted out to collect personal belongings, experiencing the same humiliation Leavitt had endured earlier. A perfect symmetry of justice. The media storm intensified. Conservative networks framed the incident as evidence of elitism and liberal politics, while progressive outlets struggled to defend what appeared to be textbook discrimination. Patriot Air announced unprecedented measures. Operations would halt for 48 hours to implement anti-bias training. The financial cost was enormous, but the message of change was necessary. While the media frenzy continued, something unexpected developed. Karoline Leavitt, using her influence at the White House, announced a new initiative, the Second Chance Program, designed for individuals who lost jobs due to bias incidents. "Accountability doesn't mean permanent punishment," Leavitt explained at the program's launch. "It means creating opportunities for those who acknowledge mistakes and strive for change. We can't build a fairer society without giving them a path forward." Among the first participants were Emily Carter, David Lawson, and Michael Bennett. Their journey was challenging, forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their biases. "I never thought I was biased," David admitted during a group session. "I thought because I didn't openly criticize anyone, I was a good person. This incident showed me how bias operates subtly, even when we don't see it." Emily focused on moral courage. "I knew what was happening was wrong, but I was afraid of losing my job. Now I understand my silence made me complicit." With program certifications in hand, they began rebuilding their lives, not in their previous roles, but in entry-level positions that offered a second chance. Emily became a ground staff member at a regional airline. David started as a baggage handler. Michael, due to his age, found purpose teaching in the Second Chance program. 6 months after the incident, Patriot Air had transformed. Independent auditors confirmed that the airline now led the industry in customer satisfaction across all demographics. For the first time, passengers of all political beliefs reported equal service quality. "I feel more respected no matter who I am," one passenger shared. "They actually listen, not just prioritize celebrities or those with the right politics." The Second Chance program became a model for other industries, promoting accountability without permanent banishment. Emily, David, and Michael, though starting over in lower roles, gradually regained professional respect. Their journeys testified that justice isn't just punishment, but an opportunity for redemption. In a private meeting at Patriot Air headquarters, Karoline Leavitt sat across from CEO Robert Harrison, reviewing the 6-month progress report. "You've shown real change," she acknowledged, her voice measured. "That deserves recognition." Robert nodded, new lines on his face reflecting the strain of recent months. "It hasn't been easy, but it was necessary. What happened to you forced us to confront issues we'd ignored for years." "That's often how change happens," Leavitt replied. "Not through comfort, but through confrontation." The story of Karoline Leavitt and Patriot Air encapsulates a broader truth about American politics. Principles are easy to proclaim but difficult to uphold when tested. In a nation fractured by political identity, the ultimate challenge isn't winning arguments. It's maintaining consistent standards, regardless of who sits across the aisle, or in this case, across the airplane seat. If you believe our political climate needs more accountability and less tribalism, share this video to start that conversation. Subscribe to Karoline now for more incisive analysis of the political dynamics shaping our nation. Remember, in the theater of American politics, we're not just audience members, we're participants. The quality of the performance depends on all of us.